Yeah, you're exactly right. Deliberately offensive. And the half-ass apology that they tried to issue afterwards just goes to the core that this was purposely offensive, because these people that organize these freak shows, they love to ruffle the feathers of Christians because they know that Christians really won't do anything about it. It'll hurt our feelings for a day. There'll be some social media outrage, but then nothing will really come of it. You couldn't make fun of any other religion this way. They wouldn't stand for it. They wouldn't allow it to happen. They would have a much bigger outcry than just a few disgruntled Christians who take offense to it and a few maybe celebrity Christians who have spoken out about it. But they deliberately intended to offend Christians, and they wanted to put on this freak show to just once again thumb their nose at people with more traditional values and say that, hey, no spectacle is left for normal people anymore. You want to watch sports and just enjoy sports? Well, no, we're going to have drag queens and we're going to shove bearded ladies and blue men in your face and enjoy. And that's exactly what they wanted to do, and they achieved it. Congratulations, you've turned off people from sports, one of the only things that gave us some reprieve in this election cycle.
Elon Musk actually reposted on X a doctored video featuring Kamala Harris. Her voice had been doctored by AI. Let's take a look at the clip first of all.
I, Kamala Harris, am your Democrat candidate for president because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility at the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
Now, a number of issues from that. One is, on one level, it's just quite funny. It's a joke. It's a parody. But secondly, that video has now been seen 128 million times on Elon Musk's X account. He said, "This is amazing," with a laughing emoji. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, told Musk to take it down, to which Musk replied, "I checked with renowned world authority, Professor Sug on these nuts." And, and he said parody is legal in America, which is a typical Elon Musk response. Destiny, you're not laughing. Did you not find any of this funny?
You have the richest man in the world from another country who bought the largest social media platform for media news distribution. He made it private. He took it private, doesn't do reporting on anything anymore, and is now openly reposting AI deepfake images of left-wing candidates. Like, holy shit. It's like everything they accused George Soros of doing, except it's actually out in the open and they're actually doing it. They're all laughing about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, because it's
funny,
a parody.
Like in a depressing kind of way.
Hold up. So you're trying to tell me that Elon Musk posting an obvious AI parody video is everything the conservatives have accused George Soros of doing over the last 8 years? Are you nuts? Where in there did Elon Musk pay billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to get district attorneys hired, to fund, campaigns, to supposedly pay for protesters, to bus, rioters in during the summer of love, amongst probably a dozen other things? How does that compare? I mean, that's such a reach. Like, are you seriously trying to conflate one innocent post of a parody to all of that? I mean, get real, dude. Like, that's how insane the left is. That's how insane at least Destiny is. I won't blame the whole left for the nonsense that Destiny says, but, Cenk Uger's sitting there and he's not correcting him. He's not shaking his head. He's agreeing along, right? So, I don't know.
Let me ask.
Hold on. It's a parody like when Snoop Dogg does a music video and Donald Trump is in it and Republicans are losing their mind over, oh my God, it was a mock assassination. Yeah, parody, come on.
Well, yeah, they shot him in the head in the video. They shot him in the head.
Let me ask. Before we move on to all things Olympics, I want to talk to Cenk quickly. We've talked a lot, Cenk, in this whole campaign about what may present a proper threat to Donald Trump. And it seems to me that if you look at the first week of Kamala Harris, all right, it's been a coronation. Many people are concerned about the way it's happened, everything else. But the money is absolutely pouring in for her, $200 million plus in a week. She's exuding an air of a leader. I saw her with Netanyahu where she looked presidential. She made a sort of presidential sounding address, even though there is an actual president, Biden, who's still there. She's got a lot of momentum here. There's only 4 months to go. Can she ride that wave of momentum? We're seeing the gap closing in many of the polls. You're seeing the black gap, for example, the black vote gap closing markedly, the Hispanic vote apparently closing as well. Is this just a honeymoon thing? Or are you looking at her and thinking, actually, you know what? She's got a chance here.
Yeah, it's both, Piers. First of all, to the Democrats out there who think that this is not going to be a roller coaster ride and we're just going to easily win, snap out of it. That is not a healthy way of thinking about it. That is very unlikely. The Republicans are really good at inventing issues, so they'll invent things to be outraged about. It'll hurt her. So there's a lot more cycles to come. Having said that, look, Piers, I was on your show many times saying we got to get rid of Biden, and if we do, we'll go from near 0% chance to at least a 50% chance of winning. And that is all the difference in the world, and that is where we are now. There was no question that it was the right thing to do, to push Biden out, to get a candidate that excites people. And the minute people saw someone who was not 98 years old, because both Biden and Trump are so old, so decrepit, the American people were like, oh my God, it turns out young, vibrant person who can speak is possible as our leader. So that's why she's gotten this huge bump up. That part is real and will last. Whether she can then take that, build off of it, and win is a different issue.
Officer Tatum, are you worried at all about the fact it's no longer doddery old Joe, but a much more dynamic Kamala Harris who appears to be resonating?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm worried, but I do think that they do have some leverage there. I mean, Joe Biden was so terrible, and that was an easy win for us. I was excited that he was falling off the rails. But the difference is that Kamala Harris watched him fall off the rails and defended him this entire time. The Democrats defended him. They said he was okay. They said nothing was wrong with him. And the crazy fact is that Democrats think it's appropriate that this man that's supposed to have all these great accomplishments can't even run for president again. And they think that he can still run the country. This is what Democrats are representing. And Kamala Harris, she's going to have a lot of momentum because she is younger, because it is a relief from a half-dead person running for office, but it's going to die because there's no substance there. You can only pour so much money into a person. You can only be hype about a woman because she's a woman and she's black and she's a minority, get all these crazy women on a call. You can only do that for so long, but then the American people are going to be looking at their bank accounts. They're going to be looking at the inflation. They're going to be looking at all these things that they already have problems with. They're going to be looking at immigration, and they're going to say, okay, now that all the fluff is over, what are you going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. And they're still, think about this, Piers, they are still in the administration that's running the country right now. It's not over. They still have to run the country, and they're failing miserably. And so I don't think it's going to last enough when the rubber meets the road.
Okay, well, joining the panel now is the host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren. Tomi, great to see you. This J.D. Vance problem, as it's now being categorized, where they found this comment he said to Tucker Carlson several years ago about childless cat ladies. How damaging do you think that is potentially to Republicans? I know you've been quite vocal on X about this, and I kind of agree with you. But explain why you're so concerned.
Well, I'm concerned because I want to get Donald Trump reelected, and I don't think that it's helpful to have some of these unforced errors. It just shouldn't be a part of the discourse, shouldn't be a part of the discussion. We should be talking about policy, as the rest of your panel has been talking about for your entire show. We should be talking about issues that matter to the American people, that they can vote on and they can change. You're not going to vote and make someone have a kid or have 5 kids or have no kids. Really has nothing to do with that. It's a personal decision. As somebody who is a conservative and maybe more libertarian-leaning conservative, I just don't think that someone's maternal status should be brought into this discussion at all. And I think that the best thing that running mate and Senator J.D. Vance can do at this point to get himself out of this situation is to just simply apologize, say that he meant it as a joke. He doesn't look at people who don't have kids any differently than he looks at people that have 5 kids, and move on from it. Disarm them, much in the same way that Donald Trump disarmed the argument on a national abortion ban. Donald Trump got out, he was very definitive about it, and he really neutralized the argument. So J.D. Vance needs to do that. But if he doesn't, we're just getting more clips and more footage of him saying similar things, and it's not going to be helpful to the Trump campaign. It's an unforced error. I hope we can move on from it.
The big issue is what J.D. Vance doesn't have, what Trump has that a lot of Republicans don't have, and they haven't keyed in, they haven't tapped into this yet, is Trump is truly shameless. Trump will say anything, whereas Vance is trying to play it more as like a traditional politician. But to have that alongside Trump, where now Vance is like, well, when I said this before, you know, I didn't, like Donald Trump would never do these things. So it's interesting to see Vance conduct himself as a more ordinary politician rather than with the same kind of air of shamelessness that
Yeah, you
Trump
know what?
exudes.
I think you make a good point. I think that J.D. Vance is trying to be like a proper politician, whereas Trump's the complete opposite and can just barrel his way through any of these things. Let's go back to the Olympics, Tommy. So the opening ceremony, I was watching this, and there were lots of things which blew my mind. Some in a good way. I thought Celine Dion's comeback was spectacular, an incredible act of heroism, frankly, after what she's been through with her health. But this scene involving a parody, a lampooning of Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting. Clearly, that's what it was. They tried to pretend it was to do with some Greek god feast and so on. But the woman in the middle there, with the kind of weird spiky halo above her head, who was playing Jesus, actually said on the Instagram, this was clearly, she put it next to the Da Vinci painting. So there was no doubt what they thought they were doing. They were lampooning the Last Supper. Now, I'm a Catholic. There are 2.4 billion Christians in the world. I can only begin to imagine the uproar this had been done to, say, Islam or to Hinduism or to Judaism, to any other religion, frankly. But because it was the Christians, it was like, well, it's a fair game, Gov. I didn't think it was. I thought it was grotesquely and deliberately offensive. What were your thoughts?
Ooh.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Deliberately offensive. And the half-ass apology that they tried to issue afterwards just goes to the core that this was purposely offensive, because these people that organize these freak shows, they love to ruffle the feathers of Christians because they know that Christians really won't do anything about it. It'll hurt our feelings for a day. There'll be some social media outrage, but then nothing will really come of it. You couldn't make fun of any other religion this way. They wouldn't stand for it. They wouldn't allow it to happen. They would have a much bigger outcry than just a few disgruntled Christians who take offense to it and a few maybe celebrity Christians who have spoken out about it. But they deliberately intended to offend Christians, and they wanted to put on this freak show to just once again thumb their nose at people with more traditional values and say that, hey, no spectacle is left for normal people anymore. You want to watch sports and just enjoy sports? Well, no, we're going to have drag queens and we're going to shove bearded ladies and blue men in your face and enjoy. And that's exactly what they wanted to do, and they achieved it. Congratulations, you've turned off people from sports, one of the only things that gave us some reprieve in this election cycle.
Yeah, you know, Cenk, I'm afraid I kind of agree. The Olympics are supposed to be this great global unifying event. And here you have them deliberately pissing off 2.5 billion Christians. Why?
Cenk just said it right before Tommy gave a response. He goes, ooh, like he gives a shit, right? And that's basically it right there. You can see the look on his freaking smug ass face right now. It's so annoying.
Okay, so first of all, I don't agree with you. I think it was about Greeks. Olympics are Greek in origin. That painting, Dionysus, is in France. The other one is in Italy. But let's say that you're right, Piers.
Well, I'm only basing it on what the woman who was playing the central character.
Yeah, but she's not the director.
On her Instagram,
she's just one
which she then
rando
deleted.
Actor.
She literally put the two pictures next to each other.
Cenk, you realize that they rehearsed this performance, right? They didn't just show up on the Olympic opening ceremony and just all of a sudden know how to do it. The person that was the centerpiece of the image that they portrayed came out and said it herself. Why can't you believe people when they tell you the truth out of their mouth? I don't understand you. Quit making up excuses. Quit trying to act like Christians are just these victims when really the victim mentality lives and thrives amongst the left.
The two pictures next to each other.
Piers, she's a rando actress. She didn't choreograph it, she didn't direct it. But none of that matters because I don't agree with your central point anyway. So in the right wing in America, they're always saying, oh, freedom of speech, man, freedom, okay? Who cares if you get offended? So I'll offend black people, Muslims, Jews, women, gay people, ha ha ha, freedom. And the minute that Christians are offended ever so slightly, they're like, oh my God, we're the victims. We're the most special victims of all time. Okay, get over yourselves. And by the way, I'm consistent on this. You know, I was born Muslim, but when Muslims say you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad, I say, hey, brother, you can't draw the Prophet Muhammad. That doesn't apply to anyone else. They're not in your religion. So can everybody just stop being offended at everything and move on with your lives? Really, this is so important to you, and you caught feelings
Destiny
over
is
it?
somebody who Destiny is somebody who I know very rarely gets offended by anything. What was your view of this?
I mean, like there's two levels to this. So one, if it truly was a parody of The Last Supper, then I guess you can evaluate it as such. And if you want to get offended or you want to be upset about it, I can understand why people would be. But I mean, I mean, the idea that this was with like the festivities involving Dionysus and the fact that this is like the Olympics and the Greeks and the fact that like the big thing that everybody's mad about is like the one picture, which is like zoomed in and it's not even what the thing in totality looked like, is just pearl clutching from conservatives. And, you know, when you look at, it's funny because in a way it kind of wraps into the whole Kamala Harris and conservatives being threatened. Conservatives have only run off of like culture war stuff and like crazy social issues for the past like 8 years. There is no policy platform. So it's not surprising to me that now the new thing, the new chip that they've inserted into their mind to be upset about this week is that they feel slighted by the Olympics, you know? Who knows, maybe it'll be a Happy Holidays Cups, you know, in a few months or something.
All I would say is I'm not a conservative. I am a Christian. I'm a Catholic. And I was pissed off by it. I thought it was deliberately mocking our religion in a way that they just wouldn't have done it with Islam.
Oh, wait,
they wouldn't have done it with Islam.
You were watching. You were
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why.
You're like, oh my God, is this the last? I'm so upset right now. No shot.
Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why. Let me explain why. There's actually a shocking double standard about this. And it's this. There was a veteran commentator of 40 years of covering the Olympics and athletics, normally in things like water polo, volleyball, all that kind of stuff. There's a guy called Bob Ballard. He's an English guy, and he was fired by Eurosport because he said this in relation to an Australian relay swimming team, female.
Well, the women just finishing off. You know what women are like. Hanging around, you know, doing the makeup.
Outrageous, Bob. Some of the men are doing that as well.
They're doing the makeup. Yeah.
Now, Josie, here's the point I would make about this, and this is the double standard I was alluding to. It was a bit of a dumb joke, all right? It's a sort of silly, quite sexist joke about women taking their time to do their makeup. But who cares? It was obviously just a little joke. He's an older guy. He hasn't got the woke memo about no one can laugh at anything anymore. But putting aside that to one point, he gets fired immediately. But the people behind the desecration of The Last Supper in front of billion viewers, offending 2.5 billion Christians, none of them get held accountable. Why has Bob Ballard had to go for what was a lame but tame joke about female swimmers?
Before she answers, let me just say that I appreciate Piers Morgan's attempt at, you know, comparing the two, but the reality is the guy made a joke about women putting on makeup. That doesn't have anything to do in relation to comparison about the mockery of The Last Supper. Now, I find it ironic that Destiny is up here and Cenk is up here saying, you know, the right is so triggered, the Christians are so triggered, acting like only conservatives are Christians, or maybe it's the other way around, that all Christians are conservative, when the reality is Christians are on the right, Christians are on the left, Christians are libertarian, Christians are independent. So they're relating Christians being offended at the mockery of The Last Supper to conservatives playing a victim, right? When conservatives aren't the ones that play the victim. Cenk just said that conservatives are the ones that are always making fun of everybody and laughing at everybody, even though he followed it up seconds later, like the hypocrite that he is, and says that we all need to quit playing the victim mentality, right? And The reality is, he's talking about Christians need to quit acting like victims. He's not talking about we as in everybody. If Piers Morgan told Cenk right now that Kamala Harris is not black, that she's Indian, which is true, he would very quickly jump into virtue signal victim mode and start calling Piers Morgan and the rest of the Christians, because Piers Morgan's saying that he's Catholic, the bullies. So what is it? Are we the bullies or are we the victims? Because we can't be both. Which is ironic because the left are the worst bullies on the planet and they pretend like they're the biggest victims. Go figure.
It's about two different sets of rules for two different types of people. And he said something that was considered sexist against women, which, let me say, as a woman, yes, we take a while to do our makeup. And that's okay. And it's all right to acknowledge that. It's just the truth. And it's nothing sexist about it. But since he offended the wrong people, he had to pay the punishment for offending the wrong people, which was, losing his job?
And that's another great point that I've actually made before on this channel. Anytime somebody on the right steps out of line, the left wants to have you canceled, canceled from social media. They want you fired from your job. They want you labeled, a misogynist, a sexist, whateverist or whatever phobe, but whenever the Christians get offended, we don't start labeling people. We just say, hey, that's bad. We're offended by that. Why did you do that? And then what do? What does the left do? They start attacking you and saying, quit being the baby, quit being the victim. That's for us. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, he's been pulled off the Olympics. Officer Tatum, here's my problem. Nobody's really offended by what he said. Nobody. And yet I read people on social media calling for his kind of summary execution. This was the most disgusting. And here's what really got my goat too. This was all raging away at exactly the same time that a Dutch male swimmer was trending on X because he's wearing a flesh-coloured swimming trunks, which looked like they reveal a bit too much. And women who were expressing, on the one hand, outrage at this sexism from Bob Ballard were all drooling over this Dutch guy's trunks. It's one rule for them, another for us, Officer Tatum.
100%. I think that's what frustrates people because it's like, look, if you listen, I would love to see them do a mockery of Muhammad. Their heads would be laying on a table and they begin thrown off of these buildings that we see in the background. If that was the case, they never would mock Muhammad. And I don't think they should mock Christianity. I'll just say this. It's bad for business no matter who you are. If I was on the board and I was looking to do events, I'd say, how about I be as impartial as possible so people can actually enjoy the Olympics, they can enjoy the festivities, and we don't have to offend people in this moment. But they could not help themselves but to shame Christians. And then if a man makes a comment about a woman, it also makes people, here's what I'll say. Black people get so offended about just about anything. You see Jewish people get offended just about anything, and women get offended by just about anything. And it really creates this animosity in these groups, or gay people get offended by a lot of stuff. It creates animosity because a woman can make a joke about a man and say he's ugly, he's hairy, he's nasty, he's dirty, and men just take it, and who cares? But if you make a joke about a woman, they got a term called sexist, and it's weird to me. And what it does is it create animosity between groups that should not exist. It's just like if you make a joke about a black person, you will never in your life see a white comedian really joking about black people. Even if it's a joke, you hardly will ever see it. Black people joke about white people every day of the week. Why can't we all just look at each other as people? If somebody want to tell a joke, tell a freaking joke, laugh at it. If you don't like it, just turn the channel. But now it's such a double standard that when I was a cop, just real quick, when I was a cop, I could say things online, I could do things on patrol that if I were white, I would get fired immediately and called a racist. And that's just not right. And I want to see those things change in America.
Yeah, Tommy, have we just lost our sense of humor? I couldn't imagine you getting outraged by somebody making a joke like that to you. You would just probably laugh and whack them back with a zinger of your own, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me. That joke about women taking a long time. Guess what? Women do take a long time. So it doesn't bother me in the least. I'm not going to get outraged about it. And to be quite honest, to go back to this Last Supper thing, I didn't like it. It somewhat offended me as a Christian. But all it's going to do for me is I just have no interest in watching the Olympics anymore because it's turned me off now because they've made a point of saying, hey, this is not for you. Kind of the same way that Bud Light made a point with Dylan Mulvaney saying, hey, all you other people, this really isn't for you anymore. So to go back to what Brandon Tatum said, this is more about a business thing because now I just have no interest in watching the Olympics. I might have otherwise. So just why do it? Why go out of your way to offend a certain people's religion? Bad for business. I'm not going to cry over it, but I just think it's stupid.
I agree. I
think you guys are all way too sensitive.
No, you know, the thing is, the funny thing is that you're too sensitive. You're sensitive that we have an opinion.
All right,
that's
Cenk,
crazy. If people are upset with it, they have an opinion.
Let Cenk have his say.
So listen, I agree. Yeah, I agree with Piers on that. Ballard guy should have never been fired. It's totally innocuous joke. I agree that Democrats focus too much race and gender, and I agree that sometimes it feels imbalanced. But guys, you're pretending like Christians don't run the country. Of course they do. You're pretending like women have historically had the same amount of power that men have had. Of course they haven't. There's a reason why. So for example, I'll use my own background. In Turkey, if the Turks make fun of the Kurds, it's not the same as if the Kurds make fun of the Turks. Why? Because the Turks have all the power. And they could crush the minority who are the Kurds. There's a power imbalance there. That's what they're pointing out. Look, I wish we got past all this race and gender stuff, but if you want to talk about who's offended, I mean, you guys say like, oh yeah, you can never do it about Muslims. Are you crazy? As a guy who's ethnically Muslim, born Muslim, people say that they say the worst possible things about me, including that I should be killed 2,000 times over every single day, and nobody ever does a damn thing about it.
Who's the victim? Who are the ones with the victim mentality? Get out of here. This dude's a joke.
Who cares about Muslims in this country?
No, hang on. Brandon, hang on. The thing is, Cenk, you're missing the point. The point is not whether you would find a joke funny or not about Muslims. It's the fact that the Olympic chiefs would never have authorized a skit mocking Islam and the Prophet Muhammad in the way that that skit mocked Christianity and Jesus Christ. And it was interesting to me to see the reaction, actually, from Muslim groups, including one of the biggest Muslim groups in Egypt, where their leader came out and was as emphatically critical of what had happened on behalf of Christians as any Christians were. So this was something where I think leaders of all faiths around the world went, you know, even if it's not us, this is just gratuitously offensive.
It's the idea that it's the best comparison that's always done is
hold on, let me answer that.
Hang on, Destin, I'll come to you after
let me just answer that real quick. So first of all, I don't care about the Olympic Committee, and I don't believe that anybody's going to watch swimming or not watch swimming because they were offended by some sort of skit. If we're talking about which religion actually has power, are we kidding here? So Christians in Louisiana and other places are actually passing laws saying that the kids have to be indoctrinated with Christian propaganda. So there is actually people that have power in this country, and it is definitely not Muslims, it's Christians. And by the way, we're talking about getting offended. As now an atheist, people say that we're going to burn in hell. They say the most offensive things about us, and we don't sweat it. You know why we don't sweat it? Because we know we're right. If you guys knew that you were right, then you wouldn't sweat it either. But you actually are nervous about it because you don't think you're right. That's why you take so much offense at people saying their opinions about your religion. And that's true of all of them.
All right, Destiny, final word to Destiny.
Something that should always be kept in mind is conservatives always play this game. And Piers, I think you do it sometimes too, where people will say, well, look at this person in power and what they said. Okay, well, what if we compare that to what these random people on Twitter said? Why the comparisons, right? This guy was a commentator for the Olympics, and whether you agree or disagree with women participating in sports or not, the fact that you would allude to people doing makeup when these are some of the most athletically competitive women in the world doing their competitive events, I could imagine a lot of people would view that in really bad taste. I understand that and say, well, what about these random people on Twitter making comments? How is this even a comparison? Like, they're not going to be fired from anything because they're not working for anything. They're just random people on Twitter. And then again, this idea of like Christians being so mad that Tommy's over, I'll never watch the Olympics because one still from like an 8-hour opening ceremony offended me as a Christian. And it's like, are we forgetting that? I mean, forget what Cenk said about people trying to have the 10 Commandments be, you know, in courthouses and you know, whether or not religious education or whatever should be mandated, all this. Forget that. The president of the United States in the last term, Donald Trump, literally ran on banning Muslims from coming to the United States. He wanted to ban Muslims from coming. He had a conversation with Giuliani where he said, how do I ban all Muslim immigration?
What
The United
are you
States, none of this
sleeping
is,
under a rock?
to be clear, none of
You're
this is
under
even
a rock.
contested.
Destiny,
He went
you're
with the
living
7.
under
He
a
went
rock.
with the 7.
He
No,
did
I live
not-
in the real
he
world.
did
I hope
not
that you
say
conservatives
he was
join
gonna
us one day,
ban
please.
Muslims.
He absolutely did. You
He's
go
gonna
look it up.
ban
Giuliani,
Muslims
Donald Trump,
from America.
conversation, Muslim ban. There's a reason why
Put
he went
some
with 7
money
countries
on
that
it.
he did.
Put some
He
money
did.
on it,
He
Destiny.
did. Go
Put
look
some
it up.
money on
Go
it.
read it. Go read it.
We can
Go
do
read
a
it. Go
bet
look it up
right now.
Go look it up.
Let's bet right now. You say you'll ban Muslims
you know
from
what?
America.
I'm
There's
actually-
many Muslims
No, I
nations
know,
that weren't
Trump.
banned.
Look, I'll say one last thing. One last thing. For conservatives, Trump never means anything he says. He says, let's ban a complete and total ban of Muslims. And they go, no, he's just joking. He's lying. He's crazy. He's stupid. Don't ever believe anything he says. Then why do you guys like him?
Did Obama ban Muslims?
No.
Donald
No,
Trump
of
went
course
on
not.
the same list for banned countries as Obama. Trump went on the
So
same
this
list
is-
as
this
Obama's
is the
list.
conservative
He's just
line.
going
Why
on
did
the
he
same
say it,
list.
brother?
He
He
said
said
it.
it. He said it because he wants you to hate Muslims.
What Donald Trump
no, it's
said,
not.
fact check, okay, by a true patriot. Welcome to this fact check. Obama had a list of 7 countries that were under heightened scrutiny for surveillance for people that visited the United States. Donald Trump initially wanted to ban all Muslims. That got shot down as an idea. So instead,
no,
he
he
took that
didn't.
list of countries. He took the 7 countries that Obama had under
He
heightened
said
scrutiny
it.
for immigration or visas,
He wanted
and he
to ban
decided to
all
ban those
Muslims.
7 countries instead.
He's gonna
So the
ban
idea
all
that Donald Trump
Muslims.
used the
Where-
same list that Obama
it
did.
is actually-
Obama
hang
used
on,
it for
hang on.
immigration
Ban all
ban.
Muslims.
Hang
Obama
on,
used
hang
it for
on.
heightened scrutiny for surveillance.
Hang on.
How could
it
Trump
is
ban all
completely.
Muslims?
Hang on. I'm about to say to Officer Tatum, Donald Trump never called for a ban on all Muslims. He actually called for a short-term cessation of allowing people from the 7 countries Obama had identified coming into America after a terror attack while they worked out what was going on. And that got shot down. That's actually the truth
Not
about
true.
what happened. And if you're going to talk about Barack Obama,
No.
let's come back to my favorite thing. My favorite statistic about Barack Obama is that for all the talk
Oh,
about
the
Trump
deporter in
and
chief.
deportations
Obama's
and
not
the
running for
border and everything
office.
else,
Piers, let it
the
go.
truth is
He's not running.
The
He's
truth
not
is
running.
the
He's not
greatest
running for
deporter in
office.
the history of the United States was Barack Obama. Final
Okay,
word
we
to
won't
Tomi
vote for him.
Lahren.
We're not going to vote for. I
Well, hang
promise
on,
not to
hang on.
vote for Barack Obama in 2025. I won't
He's
do
a
it. I won't vote for
Democrat.
final
though.
word
He's
to
a
Tomi.
Democrat.
Or
I wanna
Hunter
give the
Biden. I
final
won't vote
word
for
to-
either of those.
I want to give the final word to Tommy because she was late to the party. Tommy, you can end the party.
Well, I will end it the way we end most of our conversation, Piers, in talking about the Olympics and the outrage over the Last Supper and the commentator who apparently made fun of women. I really don't care about any of that. I actually, if you want to defend women, you want to defend everybody, let's just keep biological males from competing against women. And I think maybe that'll solve a lot of our problems and level the playing field. So just to bring it back to what really matters here, let's just
And you
bring
know what?
equality for women's sports. And I think hopefully that's
And you
something
know
that
what?
everyone can stand for.
Very timely because, in fact, 2 transgender women boxers have now been given permission to compete in the Olympics after being banned from the Women's World Boxing Championships. They were disqualified. They're now able to compete in the Olympics against biological females, women, right? Which I think is the complete epitome of insanity. We are now going to let biological males get in a boxing ring and beat up biological females. And that, if that is progress, as progressives would like you to have to think, then I've got some used cars to sell you. It's nuts. Anyway, thank you very much to my panel.
So that was good. Funny thing is, you notice Destiny didn't put his money where his mouth is, just like Harry Sisson wouldn't put his money where his mouth is. I'm glad they brought in Tomi Lahren there. She made a lot of good points. I'm glad Piers challenged them when he did. Because, you know, a lot of people just accuse him of being on the left or accuse him of being on the right. I don't know which one it really is. It just kind of depends on which day and maybe who he's talking to. For the sake of truth, I'm glad that he brought up Obama there and being the deporter-in-chief. I thought it was funny that Destiny, he gets so frustrated at hearing that the truth hurts, and you can just see it physically on him, that he's in pain when he hears that, and he acts like it's nonsense to bring it up because nobody's voting for Obama, that he's not running. But it's completely relevant. It's 100% relevant to the conversation because ultimately he is a hardcore Democrat. He calls himself a patriot, but he doesn't do anything. I don't believe he wants anything good for Americans. He just hates Republicans, and he hates Christians apparently too, in my opinion, and he thinks that all Christians are Republicans. So, you know, according to the left, according to Cenk, according to Destiny, if you are a Christian, they don't even want your vote. They think you're stupid. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video, that helps out a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next one.